Hey guys, I'm Nolan, and today I'll be showing Exgrasia, which is a on-chain RPG-style sandbox game that I've been working on for the past couple months. I think Justin has talked a lot about worlds, so I should just start with a demo. So Exgrasia, I'll just connect here. And as we load in, I'll just note that the base layer of Exgrasia is pretty minimal. There's really only three things you can do. You can WASD to move around, pan and pinch to look around the map, and then right-click to interact with stuff that's inside tiles. I'll talk more about that as the game loads up. I also think it's kind of slow because, oh yeah, there we go, because of the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to blame that. So here we're loaded in to this world. And I'm actually this dog right here. So I can move around, WASD. So you'll notice that movement is quite slow. That is because every move is actually a real transaction on Optimism Coven. And I think the slowness adds a sort of spatial feel to the game and the map. So for instance, there's this set of rocks right here. If I have to go to these rocks, I have to actually make the trek to these rocks. And obviously, this is not the edge of the map. There's water bodies or these mountaintops, or even if you go more up there, there's ice realms and things like that. So there's a lot for players to explore in terms of the spatial feel itself. But for now, I'll not get ahead of myself, and I'll just first talk about some of the mechanics that you can use in Exgrasia as a new player. I'll start with farming. So let's walk over to this tile here and start a farm. So to start a farm, you just right-click, and you have to first claim the tile. And when you claim your tile, you select a tiny farm. And if I claim this tile right here, OK, there we go. So now I have this tiny farm right here. And I'm going to first start by planting some crops here. So let me plant a wheat crop here. And that was successful. So in a second or two, this should change into a wheat. Or not. OK, there we go. So it changed into a wheat. And now I'll harvest it. And the harvest was successful. So I guess one question is, how do I know, what did I even get by harvesting wheat here? So wheat itself is an ERC20 token. So if I could look into my wallet, I would see an ERC20 token. So I guess one natural question is, does Exgrasia have a wallet? So the answer is it does not. But instead, what it does have is a mechanism to build front-end plugins. So you could build a front-end plugin that would check, hey, what's my wheat balance? So that's exactly what I have here. So I'll take this inventory plugin and pop into my settings. Oh, I actually already have it added, so I'll just turn it on. And if I look here, there we go. So you can see I have tiny wheat 5. So I have 5 of the tiny wheat tokens. So now I can use these tokens to do whatever I want. But for now, let me go back to this. And I guess, yeah, one question is, what can crops even do, really? So for that, we'll jump back into the demo. And I'll show you one of the things crops can do. And that is, you can make a ranch. So you can go here. Again, we'll look for a tiny ranch and claim that as a tiny ranch. And now, if you want to start a ranch, we can start a ranch with cow, but cows, and feed them our wheat. But to do that first, we have to give the ranch access to our wheat tokens. So I'm just going to pop into Etherscan and take the address of the ranch contract, and then take this stack of wheat right here, and approve the stack of wheat to have access to my, approve the ranch to have access to my stack of tiny wheat. And there we go. So it approved. So now I should be able to turn this ranch into a cow ranch. OK, that was successful. So you can see there's 0 cow living here right now. But if you feed them enough, there will be cows living. And you can even milk them and get a tiny milk token. So you can build all sorts of, I guess, complex interactions with tokens and supply chains and stuff like that right into Exgrasia. And I guess it is sort of a sandbox where these tokens and things like this are part of like a management sim or something can be simulated inside Exgrasia. But at this point, I should reveal something that is, I think, even cooler than all of these tokens and things like that. That is that all of these contracts that you see, so for instance, this tiny Questmaster here, or this tiny cow ranch, or the farm we just saw, they are actually player-made contracts. They are not something Exgrasia's base layer ships with. These are tile contracts created by players and put into these tiles after being claimed. So if you want to make your own tile contracts, you'll notice right now you cannot code your tile contracts. But if you look at the Questmaster can give you access to the codex of this world, which allows you to make your own tile contracts. So I can see that there is one quest he has for me that only requires me to harvest 5 wheat, which I already have done. So let me go claim that. And that was successful. So now if I look up any of the tiles, I can literally put in any address here. And that means that I can make my own contract and put it in here. And in fact, Exgrasia ships with its own IDE called the Exgrasia Remix IDE. It's just a fork of Remix that allows you to, that simplifies a lot of the dev tooling for tile contracts and stuff like that. So for instance, here I have this like template smart contract for a tile. There's only really 4 functions that you really need. An emoji, a name, a description. These are the things that go into making the representation on the Exgrasia world. So for instance, this is the description here. This would be the name, and that's the emoji. And there's also another 4th function called the tile ABI. This ABI is just a pointer. This could be to IPFS or your personally hosted link. And this ABI is used to render this auto-generated UI by itself. So you can write an arbitrary, complicated Solidity contract, and we will generate the UI for it automatically in the client. So I think it makes sense to just try and implement something right now. So one thing I could do is for my dog, I could make a small dog house. So let me do that. Let me call this a tiny house. And let me also zoom in a little bit. OK. Let me grab a house emoji. And let me call this a dog house. And let me just delete this and say this is the best house or something. OK, so now I'm just going to compile my contract. And oh, I forgot a semicolon. And OK, now that it's compiled, I'm going to select my contract. And when I click publish and populate ABI JSON, this will automatically put the ABI JSON on IPFS and put a link to it here. So that way I don't have to worry about a lot of like the dev tooling stuff. OK, so now that that is deployed, let me also full screen this. OK. And now I can actually just go into MetaMask and actually deploy this on Coven. So let me connect. And let me select tiny house here. And now if I deploy and confirm this transaction. OK, there we go. So my contract was just deployed. So now I can just go into Exgrasia and take this contract address and put it right here. And there we go. So our house renders with the dog house, the emoji we chose, and this is the best house, and all the ABI functions that we just wrote. So you can see in this way, Exgrasia is sort of an infinite sandbox for doing everything you can imagine on-chain inside an Exgrasia world. The biggest advantage to putting your contracts inside the Exgrasia world is that now you have this sense of spatial connection with other contracts around it, and you can create all kinds of complex interactions based on, for instance, the tiny milk or the tiny wheat we just saw, and you can use these tokens. So for instance, those tiny wheat and tiny milk tokens as well are ERC20s that are blocked to only allow transfers if you're standing right next to each other on the Exgrasia world. So yeah, I think beyond just games and farms and stuff like that, I guess one question is, why should you care about things like Exgrasia? So, I mean, one answer is obviously that creating this sort of permissionless collaborative surface is really useful for seeding a metaverse, for the lack of a better word. And then also, I think there is another interesting thing going on with the idea of putting the API as a pointer within the contract. It creates this ability to create censorship-resistant front ends. To expand more on that, I think recently we've seen that we can build contracts that are permissionless, but the UIs or the front ends for those contracts are often not. So for instance, Uniswap Labs recently had to delete some of the tokens from their front end, or due to political sanctions and whatnot, a lot of crypto apps have to block out regions from their front ends. So if you have a setup like this where the API itself is part of the contract, there is nothing you can censor. So I think there is a lot of interesting ideas in the hypotheticals here, which I think are worth exploring. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think for my final slide, I will just mention that today I'm just releasing a beta version of Exgrasia. It is going to be open source. There is a whitelist right now, but anyone who visits this URL, 0xpark, park with a K, can just connect their wallet, and slowly you'll get whitelisted. Not all at once, because I'm not sure what happens when there's more than 20 people in a world, so we'll find out. Yeah, I think that's about it for Exgrasia. Exgrasia is a gather down you can pry, a club penguin that shall never die, and a Minecraft that stretches outside. Oh yeah, thank you to everyone, Brian, Ayush, with whom one of the first versions was built, Lean, who has been helping a lot with the look and feel of this game, Lakshman, Justin, Tony, for lots of help with debugging and whatnot, and Dark Forest team for being the sort of giant whose shoulders Exgrasia stands upon. Thank you.